I'm Doc, and this is my review of my favorite movie of 2020, Palm Springs. I know you don't need me to tell you what a crazy year 2020 was. That applies to everything we went through the pandemic and everything else. So obviously I didn't get to see the number of movies that I would have wanted, and there's a lot of movies that could be considered for my favorite movie that I haven't seen yet. I haven't seen Nomadland, I haven't seen Mank. There's a lot of movies that I haven't seen. But for now, I'm really excited to talk about Palm Springs because I loved it, as I know a lot of other people did. It's got a really high ranking on Rotten Tomatoes, I think maybe 94-95%. There are two things that I think Palm Springs does really well that, in fact, all of my favorite movies tend to do. Number one is genre deconstruction. Obviously, Palm Springs is a comedy, but it's also a stuck in the same day movie. I don't know what the proper term for that is, but it's obviously, I'm not going to say an homage, but it draws directly from Groundhog Day and takes the idea of a person being stuck in the same day over and over again, and it takes it into a really interesting new direction. I didn't know what this movie was about. I tried to avoid any kind of spoilers. Sometimes I don't even watch trailers. If it's a movie I've heard good things about, I'm just going to watch it sight unseen. So I didn't know that it was a direct comparison to Groundhog Day. I had heard it mentioned, and so within the first 5 minutes, I realized what was going on. I'm sure many of you, even if you didn't know going in, it didn't take you long to figure it out. But as soon as I knew what they were doing, I was hooked. And I loved the way they were playing with it. And I think there's that period in Groundhog Day when Bill Murray becomes hopeless and he's trying to commit suicide, and it's a pretty short stretch of the movie because then we get to like the part where, okay, he's gonna try to figure out how to win Andy McDowell over. So it moves through that, existential dread portion of the movie very quickly, whereas that's where Palm Springs lives. It's sitting in that moment. I love how it took a genre that it wasn't even really much of a genre. There's only been a very few movies that copy this idea of stuck in the same day. So it's giving us something we didn't realize we wanted, and it's forcing us to wrestle with the idea of Groundhog Day, the idea of repeating the same day over and over again, and what would that really be like, and what would that do to a person, and how would a person respond? I really love when a movie does that. It takes the genre and plays with it and wrestles with it and forces the audience to reckon with it. So that's number one. Number two, the other thing that I want my favorite movies to do is to be about something profound, to have ideas that it's grappling with, and so forcing the audience to grapple with. And obviously, Palm Springs is a very existential movie about what it means to be alive, what it means to be human. And it's using the genre, the idea of the repetitive day, to force us to look at our own lives and the repetitive nature of our own lives and the emptiness of our lives and the meaninglessness of our lives. And it's saying, obviously we're not repeating the same day over and over, but metaphorically, especially if you have, an office job or, dead end job, as they say, or any, like whatever it is, whatever your experience is. Maybe it's being married, maybe it's having a family, whatever it is, it becomes the same. It's this is your life and you're stuck in it. And how do you take meaning out of it? And that's what I think Palm Springs does so beautifully, is it looks at the human experience and the inherent emptiness of it, and it's asking, how do you find meaning? And so you have this main character, Niles. His name, I assume is taken from the idea of nihilism, who has, found that his life has lost all meaning. And so then we see his journey as he tries to reckon with the meaninglessness of it. But even better, you have Sarah, whose character in so many movies is just there to serve the protagonist, to be wish fulfillment for the protagonist. But in Palm Springs, her journey is just as important as Niles' journey. And so we then see, we get two different approaches to this existential question of how to find meaning. And then you even have a third supporting character, who J.K. Simmons, who obviously for a lot of the movie is there just for comic relief, but he's also serving a very important function to say, hey, this is another option. This is another way a person could deal with this situation. And so we're getting multiple perspectives on this idea, and it's not just Andy Samberg's movie. And I love the turn that it takes. I don't know if it's halfway through, but when we all of a sudden, switch to Sarah's perspective and see it from her, it becomes her movie for a while. And I really love it. I know obviously this is a very enjoyable movie that I think a lot of people really connected to, but it's also a movie that we don't get movies with this kind of depth, especially high concept comedies usually don't have any depth. And so anytime a movie like this is trying to deal with even superficially some kind of deep ideas, it's treated like it's some kind of masterwork. And so a movie like Palm Springs, I think it's so beautiful because I think a person can just enjoy it on the surface, or they can delve in more deeply. And it's easy to make that, it's easy to go deeper into it, whereas a lot of movies, that kind of moralizing or attempt to try to be meaningful is heavy, or is ill-suited to the subject matter or the genre. This movie is so artful in the way it handles these really profound topics. And so it makes it easy for the audience to not just laugh and enjoy the movie, but also enjoy the thought-provoking nature of the movie. And obviously, plenty of people have pointed out how it was the perfect movie for us in the middle of the lockdown, and having that experience of every day starting to feel the same, and we feel trapped in this existence that we can't get out of. But I really think that this movie is going to be meaningful long after we've put this pandemic behind us, fingers crossed. It's going to be a movie that we are referring to for years, maybe for decades. I think it's just a great movie, and I just wish more movies did what Palm Springs does, which is not just provide entertainment, but provide us something to think about. So I'm going to stop there. I could talk much more about this movie, and if anyone else wants to have a discussion, please hit me up in the comments, and I'll be happy to to start going back and forth about the movie. But if you haven't watched it, well, spoiler alert. But I'm sure if you've gotten this far in this review, you've seen it, and yeah. So I hope that you enjoyed the movie as much as I did, and that's it for this review. Happy 2021, everyone, and I hope everyone has a great year, and please don't forget to make sure that every day is meaningful in some way.